Hey, I'm just chilling with Frida and her monkeys. Here's 4.7, step 1. Take some notes. All right, we're working on the guided literary analysis. It's worth half of your IB score, and you'll do it in May. It'll be a 2-hour and 15-minute test, and you'll have 2 pieces of writing to analyze. They may be from any of the 4 genre or forms that IB lists as poetry, drama, prose fiction, and prose nonfiction. What is it? It has those 2 unseen literary passages. It's a guided analysis, which means it's an exploration of the passage, supported by a guiding question, which asks students to consider a technical or formal aspect of the passage. And it might be on any of those 4 forms. The passages may be either complete or pieces from larger works, and 1 guiding question will be provided for each passage on a central technical or formal element that may provide an interesting point of entry into the text. Now, they say that you don't have to write about the question that they suggest, but if you don't, you have to propose an alternative point of entry about any other technical or formal element. And that sounds like doing the most, if you ask me. It's going to be graded on the 4 criteria: A, understanding and interpretation; B, analysis and evaluation; C, focus and organization; and D, language. So it involves these. These are things you want to do in your your guided literary analysis. You want to show a close reading of the text. You want to show appreciation of literary features, writer's choices. You want to show that you can read between the lines. You're looking for more than the explicit translation of a poem. And an understanding of the effects of literary features, how they create thoughts and feelings, how they shape meaning in a poem. So you're expected to display an understanding of the complexities of the text, develop a convincing argument using the text to support interpretations and judgments. And there's no answer that's correct. You're encouraged to explore your own ideas, but you have to support these with textual evidence, so they're not merely guesses. And that's when we get to the non-debatable literal claims. You have to use those to support your debatable interpretive claims. You should also look at the subtleties of the text, little things that make the text complicated, complex, ambiguous, not just the obvious. Good essays typically show independent engagement with the text and a keen understanding of the effects of the author's use of various literary techniques. By the way, all of this language is coming from the IBO, in case you haven't guessed already. These are tips that they give us in documents for teachers and students. Use language appropriate to literary discussion, including accurate reference to commonly used literary terms. Discussing the effectiveness of the writer's choice of literary techniques is even more important. Now, when they say the effectiveness of the writer's choice, this doesn't mean how well the writer did their job. It means what the effects of this particular choice, whether it's an image, a word, or a way they have formed and structured those words, shapes meaning, the effect of that choice on our thoughts and ideas as readers. That's the evaluation part of the guided literary analysis. There's no requirement to reference other texts. So you're just talking about the text in front of you. They tell you that we don't have to be too prescriptive about how you organize it. I have an outline template that I'm going to ask you to do for 2.7. That's one way of organizing, and so you can use that to get started. And they do say the best commentaries put forward a persuasively organized argument. So why not follow the template I've given you, and we'll start there. All right, what not to do? Oh, we still have what to do, sorry. You're going to be assessed on your ability to show you understand the passage or poem through well-supported interpretation, identify language usage, structure, technique, and style used by the author, discuss the effects that arise from the author's choices, present your ideas in a formally organized and coherently developed piece of writing. Okay, now let's move on to what it is not. A guided literary analysis is not a formula of the first literary feature pattern plus the second literary feature pattern plus the third literary feature pattern equals an overall point. Be aware of that danger of turning it all into an equation and avoid it. Because a poem is more complicated. It's more sophisticated than that. And you are exploring possible meanings or things that the poet suggests, but not the overall point. So don't guess what the poet is really saying, and avoid the word means at all costs, unless you're really analyzing symbolism and the meaning of a particular symbol, which is not as easy as it might sound in a short extract. A guided literary analysis is also not an explanation of a lesson the poet is giving on how to live life. Avoid this. You're not reading Aesop's fables. The poet is not saying, here's how you should use technology. Here's how you should communicate with friends. It's more complicated than that. It's more sophisticated. So it's not a lecture. You want to avoid thinking of it like that. Don't look for the lesson about friendship, technology, or communication. Words to avoid: one must, teaches. It's also not a key of what the mysterious poem means, symbol by symbol. You don't have that insight. You're exploring possibilities. You're not equating one thing to another. So don't think of it like this, like a cipher. Avoid making theoretical equations of what each piece means. And so avoid those words symbolizes and represents, unless you're really analyzing symbolism. It's also not a sermon about what the poet really means. And so don't look for the one truth about the content of the poem. Poets usually strive for complexity or multiplicity of meanings, ambiguity, not just one. So avoid intends, explains. We can only guess at the poet's intentions. And in a formalist essay, which is the lens we're looking through as we write a guided literary analysis, we don't need to guess what the poet intends. That's not for us to do. We're just looking at how the words chosen shape meaning. It's also not a critique or review about how good or bad the poet is. So don't rate the poet or tell me how well she writes. Avoid words like works well, is effective, does a good job, or really shows a clear picture of. Instead, look at how the choices shape meaning. So poetry is not an equation, a lesson on how to live life, a map written in a secret code, a sermon of what the poet thinks, or a chance for you to praise or rate the poet. I should say a guided literary analysis on poetry is not any of these things. All right, here's a couple more tips for you. First of all, poetry is art. And our job is to comment on the thoughts and feelings presented in this piece of art. The writer's intentions are arbitrary in guided literary analysis. It simply doesn't matter what the writer intended or who the writer even was. Our focus is on the piece's diction, imagery, tone, mood, and structure, and how these create meaning. So start with looking at those textual features, the diction, the imagery, the tone, the mood, the structure, the syntax, and then look at how these create effects in your thoughts, what ideas are surfacing, what feelings are created, and then explore the meaning that the poet is suggesting. Here are some great words to use to help you get there. Reflects, evokes, expresses, conveys, connects, reveals, mirrors, portrays, enhances, displays, demonstrates, contributes. And the never fail phrases of creates the feeling that or creates the idea that. Don't be afraid to use these a lot. They work very well to keep you focused on exploring how the writer's choices shape meaning. Good luck as you work on the outline for your essay. There will be a video on that next. Oh, I forgot some more words. Creates, hints at, emphasizes, shows, affects, suggests, parallels. Okay, now good luck on your outline.